Keeping meat fresh for a whole year. Without a refrigerator. Hello everyone. As you know, meat is a food rich in nutrients, but if you want to keep it for a long time, the only option seems to be freezing it in the refrigerator to eat it little by little. However, that takes up space, and if it isn't stored properly, the nutrients are lost, which is really not good at all. In fact, there are still ways to preserve meat for a whole year without using a refrigerator. In today's video, I will show you two methods of preserving meat based on the traditional practices of the Amish. This is considered part of their survival culture handed down through generations, and it works remarkably well. Stay with me until the end, and you will understand why the Amish are able to enjoy fresh, delicious meat all year round. Method 1. Pork belly. Cooked in glass jars. If you've ever worried that meat stored in the refrigerator dries out quickly and loses its flavor, then this method of preserving pork belly in glass jars will surprise you, because it is not only safe but also keeps the rich original taste intact. To start with, I chose pork belly, which has both lean and fat, so when eaten, it won't be too dry and also not too greasy from too much fat. Then I washed it once under running water to remove excess blood and any remaining impurities, then set it aside to drain or used paper towels to blot away the moisture, making sure the meat pieces were completely dry. Where are you watching the video from? Have you ever visited the lovely Amish land? I really want to connect with everyone all over the world. Leave a comment below and I will connect with you immediately. Then cut the pork belly into pieces just right for eating and place them on a plate to set aside. Next, prepare the spice mixture for marinating. Take a clean bowl, add into it 2 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of pepper, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of ground coriander, 1 tablespoon of thyme leaves, and 3 bay leaves crushed up and put in together. Mix everything well with each other to create a fragrant dry spice mixture. This will be the coating that helps each piece of meat soak up the flavor evenly and be preserved better. Now roll each piece of meat through the prepared spice mixture, gently rubbing so the spices coat evenly all around the meat. Continue doing this until all the prepared meat is finished. Next, prepare clean glass jars and rinse them thoroughly with hot water to sterilize. Then wait until completely dry and use a dry cloth to wipe the jar rims once more to make sure there is no water or dust left. One by one, arrange the seasoned meat pieces into the jars. One note is not to pack them too tightly and to leave a small space at the top to make it easier to close the lid. When the jars are filled, place them all on a baking tray and put the lids on top, but do not tighten them yet. Then put the tray of meat jars into the oven while it is still cold. Set the oven to 392 degrees and leave it until the fat in the meat begins to melt and bubble. At this point, lower the oven temperature to 248 degrees and continue cooking for about 1.5 hours. Through this process, the meat becomes tender and thoroughly infused with the spices, while the fat released will cover the meat, becoming a natural preserving layer. When the cooking time ends, take the jars of meat out while still hot and tighten the lids. This step creates a vacuum inside the jars, a crucial process to keep the meat from spoiling for a long period. After that, let the jars cool down completely, then store them in a dry, airy place away from direct sunlight. When you want to use them, just take out a jar and warm it slightly so the fat layer on top melts. At this point, you can easily take out each piece of meat. The meat preserved this way is still tender, fragrant, and flavorful, just like freshly cooked. Especially the fat in the jar can also be used for cooking other dishes most delicious when frying or sautéing potatoes, giving a rich flavor full of traditional taste. This is a method that not only helps preserve meat for many months, even a whole year, but also keeps its original flavor without needing a refrigerator, very convenient for the family. Method 2. Pork shoulder fried and preserved in fat. Besides the method above, the Amish also often use another way of preservation that takes advantage of pork fat itself as a natural armor, covering the meat, preventing air from getting in and keeping the meat from spoiling for a long time. First, prepare about 2 to 3 pounds of pork shoulder, depending on how much you want to preserve. This cut has both lean and fat, so when preserved and eaten later, it will be tender, rich, and not dry. Then wash it clean and let it drain just like before. If the piece is large, you can cut it into smaller portions of moderate size. Then start rubbing it with salt. Simply spread salt evenly over the surface and rub gently to make sure all sides are coated. This step is very important because salt is the key ingredient that keeps the meat from turning rancid. After salting, let the meat rest for a while so the salt can penetrate evenly. Next, add about 2 tablespoons of pork fat into a pan and heat until the fat melts and becomes evenly hot. When the fat begins to simmer lightly, place the salted pork shoulder pieces into the pan to fry. Fry the meat only until about 70 to 90% cooked, meaning the surface is firm and lightly golden on both sides, but the inside still retains a certain pinkness. Not cooking it completely ensures the meat stays tender during long preservation and does not become dry and tough. Continue frying piece by piece until finished, then remove them to a clean plate. When the frying is done, prepare clean and dry glass jars. Arrange the fried meat pieces into the jars, being careful not to pack too tightly, and leaving a small space at the top of the jar for pouring in the fat. Then pour the remaining fat from the frying pan into the jars to enhance the flavor. Next, prepare about 1 pound of pork fat. Place it into a pot and melt it completely. When the fat has melted into liquid form, slowly pour it into the jar, making sure the fat almost completely covers the meat inside. This is the extremely important protective layer. Once the fat solidifies, it forms a natural barrier that prevents bacteria and air from entering, allowing the meat to be preserved for a long time without spoiling. After pouring in the fat, use a clean cloth to carefully wipe the rim of the jar, to remove any grease on the outside, helping the lid seal more tightly. Close the jar lid firmly. Then prepare a large pot, placing a towel at the bottom to prevent the jars from cracking during cooking. Arrange the jars of meat inside, pour in hot water until it reaches the rims of the jars, and sterilize for 45 minutes after the water begins to boil. This step both disinfects and ensures safety for long-term preservation. When the time is up, remove the jars and let them cool gradually. Once completely cooled, the fat will solidify into a firm block, sealing the meat inside. Thanks to this, the jars can be stored in a dry, airy place away from sunlight and can last for more than a year without the meat spoiling. The most important thing for preservation is the layer of salt and fat. Salt prevents bacterial growth, while the solidified fat is the protective layer that isolates the meat from the outside environment. This is the perfect combination, both simple and effective. The benefits of this method are not only in long-term preservation. You can take advantage of times when electricity is available, or when meat is cheaper, prepare it, and then store it for later use. During power outages, busy days, or whenever a quick meal is needed, just open a jar. Reheat it, and you'll have a rich, delicious dish ready to enjoy. Even the fat in the jar can be used for frying or sautéing other foods. The most delicious is potatoes fried in pork fat, rich and full of flavor. Oh, and remember, when taking out the meat, always use a clean, dry spoon or utensil to scoop it, avoiding bacteria entering the jar. This is truly a traditional, safe, and effective way of preserving meat, helping the family always have food stored without depending on the refrigerator. So with only very simple ingredients and methods, we already have one way to preserve seasoned meat in glass jars, and one way to seal it in a layer of fat that can be eaten for months, even for a whole year, without worrying about spoilage. Even when kept for a long time, the meat still retains its delicious flavor, rich and savory, and can be cooked into many attractive dishes. This is truly a convenient solution, especially useful during power outages or when you want to store food safely for the family. I hope that this meat preservation tip will be very helpful in daily life, especially as a life-saving secret whenever going out or not having a refrigerator. And if you find the video useful, don't forget to press like, leave a comment to share your feelings, and subscribe to the channel, so I will have more motivation to bring many more good tips and interesting recipes. Thank you for watching, and see you again in the next video.